Hey everybody, it's Anna J. Wellner with the Author Library, and today I am joined by Forrest Wells. Forrest, would you like to give us an introduction?
I guess. I'm Forrest. I'm a small town author. And my specialty is emotion, and I following the personal journeys of the characters that I write about. So for me, it's about the characters rather than the plot. Not, I don't neglect the plot, but the focus is the personal journeys taken.
And one of those is Luna, that I instantly fell in love with the cover. It's a beautiful cover. And it has a very important message, which is self-acceptance. It's a huge theme in this book. And I was immediately drawn to the book because of the message. In a way, growing up, I always felt alone. Can you tell us a few of the struggles that Luna faces on his journey?
Well, I mean, the main thing is when it all starts. When he was as a pup, everyone thought, well, he's going to take over the pack when he becomes an adult. But before he gets the chance, his own brother, who also wants to lead the pack, gets him banished for a crime basically no one committed. So now he goes from future alpha to a wolf who's supposed to never know the company of another wolf, and it's the name Luna the Lone Wolf. And as he grows up, he turns bitter about being kicked out over a lie, although not the lie you think it is. And so he has to learn to live on his own. I mean, the wild is not an easy place. Wolves hunted a pack for a reason. So he has to learn to live on his own. And then humans come into the picture, and they build their dens not all that far from his. Now that lets him learn about them, but that's still a threat. It's a danger that he has to deal with. Because these are not proper hunters. I always hope that that comes through. I wanted to add little things that may portray these as bad hunters. The ones who shouldn't be hunting. But it's more or less things like that. He's just trying to survive on his own while dealing with the internal turmoil of everything he went through as a pup.
So yes, and this was a tough process for you in the writing phase. Is that true?
Oh yeah, there are a lot of reasons that I wrote the idea. I first wrote the first words back not after 9/11. It was released back in 2019. A lot of that is I had to mature as a person and a writer, but also I have a learning disability called dysgraphia that makes it extremely difficult to get my thoughts out of my head onto my hands. Typing helps, but it's not still not that simple. So I had to learn to get around dysgraphia in order to write. And sometimes, I mean, I will take 2 or 3 hours to get my mind aligned enough so that I can write. Well, that means having 5 or 6 hours at a time, and whoops, day job, gotta go. So finding the time to go through that circle was a large part of the challenge.
It does sound like, thank you so much for sharing that. It truly shows that if you have the heart of a writer, then really there isn't anything that can stop you from achieving your dream, which is incredibly inspiring. And
Actually, if you remember do you remember the last lecture? That story about the professor who had cancer and he was famous for giving a big speech at the end of the year?
no, uh, which
I don't remember the guy's name, but he was made into a movie and
oh, Apple, Tim Cook, right?
I
No,
don't
Tim
remember his
Cook is
name,
the
but it
current
sounds right.
CEO.
But
Um, uh, God, this sounds so bad. I know the
what,
movie, and
well,
I
whatever his
know.
name is, it was called The Last Lecture, and
Oh,
he was going to
oh,
die. He was dying of cancer. Treatment wasn't going to do it. So his last year being a professor, he gave the last lecture. He was famous for doing this at the end of the year anyway, but this was special because this was his last one as a professor.
gotcha.
And he said a lot of things and it means different things. different parts mean different things. One thing that always stuck with me is the wall. He said that walls are there to test how much we want things. I was going to be a fighter pilot, an astronaut, I was going to a therapist. I was going to open my own sporting goods store. I was going to do a lot of things. Walls kept getting in the way. With writing, no wall stopped me.
Gotcha. No, I mean, you definitely kept crossing those hurdles as you came to them, even if it took you a while to do it. So that's amazing and inspiring. And you helped to kind of write that into Luna's character as well, with what he has to face and the different struggles that he goes through. Then those are, obstacles that he has to overcome as well. So I think it's always great whenever we can kind of draw on our own experience or experiences that we've had in life to help our characters become more authentic and relatable to our readers. So
And I spent most of my childhood feeling like I was alone. I was heavily bullied in elementary school, especially almost to the point of suicide. It got that bad. So I felt alone. And then in high school, I finally found like I had found some acceptance. And so in a way, I infused all the feelings that I had in my personal journey into Luna's.
that's amazing. And I'm sure that helps with the authenticity of the feelings that you describe whenever you're building Luna's character, even as being a wolf. He still has very human, anthropomorphic human characteristics to him, which is fantastic. And but we haven't seen the last of Luna, though. In fact, this summer we'll get a look at how the journey all began. Is that right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I will admit we won't see a whole lot of Luna in the prequel, but what we will see is the story of Toltan and Martel, Luna's parents. We'll see what their pack was like before they were even a mated pair, and we'll see the personal journey they had to go to get where they were when Luna was born. And there are also a couple of side stories in there that I can't go into detail because it's kind of spoilery, but
Gotcha.
there are things in Luna that were mentioned but we never saw in detail. These two side stories go into detail.
Oh, okay. So it gives us a little more understanding into some of the character, or sorry, the storyline and the plot of the main book, Luna.
Yeah, I mean, I can probably go ahead and say, one of the side characters, Luna Carlin, the wolf who's old as dirt and just as wise. We get to hear a little bit more about him when he wasn't old as dirt.
Okay. So some of those secondary characters are a little more fleshed out and a little more defined in the prequel, which is fantastic. And then you're also working on a completely new series. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And this is a sci-fi fantasy series.
Yeah, it's the first book I know is called Fog of War, and aside from the fact that I have an animal character in Alien Foxes, this is nothing like Luna. I mean, Luna was a young adult coming of age animal fiction. This is a space opera dealing with war, and it doesn't pull any punches. You will see war at its rawest, including one section in the book that gets very heavy.
So this would be definitely not a young adult book. This would be for adults.
No, I mean, it's not a true military sci-fi. That's why I'm still calling it a sci-fi fantasy. But this is more Honor Harrington than, warriors.
Okay. Good to know. Because with Luna as coming out first, it's always good to make the distinction whenever you publish a book that's not intended for young adult audiences, to make that distinction, because yeah, that would be, it sounds a lot more gritty and adult, maybe new adult or full adult sci-fi.
Oh, it's definitely full adult. Like I said, this
Full
is
adult,
war,
okay.
so yeah, there is. Definitely gets graphic in some instances. Like I said, it's more Honor Harrington. It does not pull punches when it comes to the combat and the battle and how bad war can get. That's why I wanted to finish the prequel collection first. Finish what I had with the world of Luna. That's nice and simple. Sometimes I kind of miss the simplicity of Luna, but let me put it this way: Luna almost had no notes. That sounds horrible, but I don't know. I
No,
didn't really need it.
no.
The few notes I needed were all I have. I have 30 pages of notes just about the alien foxes.
Oh, definitely
I
some world building material required
Yeah, the
for this one.
sci-fi is way more complex.
Gotcha. Well, and so you can always you can glean insight, ways of storytelling from more than just reading. But do you think that that were you a big reader and that's what led you to writing, or how did you decide, hey, I've got to get this idea down in a book?
Yeah, I was always an avid reader. I always enjoyed reading. Mind you, I was also a big consumer of, games and movies that had a good storyline, whether it's Star Trek, Mass Effect, Honor Harrington, as long as the story was good, I didn't really care. I was always writing as a kid, in school when we had journal time, I was just writing stories, but I never became a writer. Excuse me. The muse never woke up until 9/11, threw sparked the fire and it's been burning ever since. I started with poems back then I tried to write a documentary that we will never ever speak of again. And then sometime after that, I started Luna and the sci-fi universe that became Fog of War. It's kind of interesting. The original drafts of Luna didn't change all that much versus the final, whereas the sci-fi, it's completely unrecognizable. Aside from the characters and some design elements like the design of the starfighter, nothing is the same.
So it's changed a lot since the original idea that you had. So
Yeah,
that's
it's
where
gotten
all more
it's gotten
complex.
way more complex.
Gotcha.
I mean, Luna was just a wolf trying to survive on his own. The sci-fi, it's dealing with war, tactics, and politics. And, an egomaniac who thinks he should rule the galaxy. But, you always have that in some
Of
sci-fi.
course. Absolutely. So I wanted to ask, as what are the things that you've done to as an independent author that you would like to pass on to maybe others? I think from talking with you earlier, one of the big things that we talked about is don't be afraid to tinker with things other than writing. The one talking about digital marketing, like we were earlier, and some of the experience that you have with creating your own trailers and doing that. So, what advice would you give to other authors in the writing community?
Well, I'll do as I say, not as I do, because I made a lot of mistakes. When I
I
launched
definitely have to.
when I launched Luna, I was impatient. I had set a date and I was going to launch on that day, come hell and high water. But that means it wasn't as refined as it could have been. It barely was ready. I've since learned it's better to be ready late than half baked on time. So it's okay. Get the book ready. Have a final copy in your hands that looks right. Then start your timer to launch. As you were and also with you were saying with tinkering, I took digital imaging classes. I did a little bit of audio and video editing just for the heck of it. One assignment in a digital imaging class was kind of make a slideshow with music, so there was some of that. But you never know what little skill might come to help you later. I mean, you tinker with artists and art with drawing, and suddenly you can draw your own cover art. You just saved yourself $500, by the way, depending on your needs. I mean, sometimes you can get $20 stock footage, and then you got like me, where I need fully detailed art. If you end up tinkering, you can draw it yourself. Hey, you just saved a whole lot of money. I didn't expect to need digital imaging or video editing, but I've made my own trailer. I touched up my own cover because it was a very small blemish. It's like, okay, am I really going to go back to my cover designer for this? I can just, little stamp tool, pull from here, put there, it's gone. If I didn't tell you it was there, you probably wouldn't even notice. The other thing is, for new writers, you are going to hear a ton of do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. I take you back to Pirates of the Caribbean. The code is more what you call guidelines and actual rules. There are thousands of ways to write, and 999 are wrong for you. I don't care how Stephen King writes, write like you, and really in the end, everything will take care of itself. But try those methods first. I know I can't write every day because I tried it and it did not go well. I actually recommend that writers try to write every day, but be aware that maybe it's not best for you.
There are some days when I just can't fit it into my schedule, and that has to do with the things I have going on in my life, being mom, and a lot of people have work to consider and kids as well, and sometimes it's just not feasible. So that's fantastic advice, to take the information and the advice from books and from online courses and other people that you find helpful for you. If not all of it may apply to you, but what does apply, what does help, you should definitely keep in mind and continue to try new and different things, because you never know until you try.
And again, it's, some people, they're just not wired that way. If they try to force it, they end up doing worse, not better. But the thing is, one of the reasons I recommend that you try writing every day anyway is, in trying to, you will develop tricks and ways to write more often than you would have otherwise.
I never thought of it that way, but that's very true. There
It's worth trying, but it may not be law for you. Oh, and writer's block is a thing for some of us. Let's just get that out of the way. It really is a thing for some of us. For some, it really is an excuse to being lazy. And it's hard to tell which way it is, which makes it really hard. It's like, oh, it's just writer's block. Not for me.
Yeah, for some people, it's more difficult, and especially whenever you have something that is a challenge. Whenever you sit down to write, whenever it takes, some people say try and write 2,000 words a day. For you, that would be very difficult. For me, it's very difficult to try and write 2,000 words a day. But go at your own pace, because you as an author and what you're capable of.
Well, and I'll go 2 weeks, 2 months. I won't write a word because it just doesn't work out that way. And then all of a sudden, I'll play a game for an hour. Then I'll finally open up my work, and I'll churn out 5 chapters in a night. So there's no way to know it. But if I had forced it, it would not be nearly as well. And the whole idea, well, you can't edit a blank page. Well, the thing is, if you see, excuse my language, but if you see a load of crap on your page, imposter syndrome kicks in. It's like, oh, I'm never going to be a good writer, and then it makes it harder to fight past the block to write well. And that's why it's so tricky. Some people, that's not a problem. For others, it is. Writing is a very individual thing, and I'm tired of, it's this way, it's that way, it's this way, it's that way. It's not.
Thank you. Because that is true. Writing is a very personal and passionate thing. And the things that work for other writers, other authors out there don't always apply to everyone. So don't compare yourself to anyone else, because your story is different, your voice is different, your way of writing is different. I mean, I couldn't have pages and pages and pages of notes. I'm by nature a pantser, and I just let it flow. But I admire those like you, who can sit down and have a detailed plan. So what works for a plotter is probably not going to work for me.
Well, actually, I'm a pantser, but all those notes
Okay.
are world building.
Okay.
My alien foxes, they're a very confusing bunch. I mean, one example is they don't give details. You ask a question, hey, can you help me move out of my house tomorrow? Human will say, oh, I'm sorry, no, I've got to work, and then I got to go to my kid's birthday party. I'm just not available. Oh, Holdren, no. They're not being rude. It's just, why do you need to know why? It's no. That. So all these notes, they help me understand my characters or the technology before my starships, or how different races and nations operate. Although I do fall down a rabbit hole just designing the rank insignias, but all these world building things help me build the world, even though the reader may only see 10% of it. But when it comes to actually writing the book, no, I'm a pantser. There is no plan. I tried plotting once, and the entire plan ended on the first sentence. It was just gone.
Yeah, I know.
Story deviated.
I did the same thing. I decided that one of my books in the series had gotten to that point where I thought this one needs to be plotted. I tried. I threw that plot out the window. Um, so I definitely, I feel you there. I feel you on that one.
I have like signposts. I kind of have, okay, I know this is going to happen. I kind of know this is, and sometimes I have some basic idea of the climax. Like I have a barely developed fantasy idea. I have an idea of how it's going to end, but I have no idea how I'm going to get there.
But that's what
And
that's fun though. That's fun.
yeah, because I get to read my own work.
Exactly. You get to be a reader and a writer at the same time, which is the joy of writing. And when you are writing like that, it comes across on the page, and the readers get to see that spontaneity in your writing right along with you. So great
And
advice.
I always say, if you don't like your work, no one else is going to.
Very true. And we're always our own harshest critics, which can sometimes be a good
That too.
thing and a bad thing. But
Yeah, believe me. And with the sci-fi, it feels like everyone wants hard sci-fi like The Expanse. I have alien foxes who fire energy beams from their tails, and I have a shield system that has rendered Sir Isaac Newton obsolete. And then over in Luna and Blood of an Alpha, I have to admit, I have wolves who are doing things that wolves would not actually do. But that's what those stories need.
that's what's very freeing about writing fantasy and sci-fi, is because under that genre we get to make those rules. So
As
you have a
I
little
just
more
hope I
freedom.
can, yeah, I just hope I can warn readers. If you're looking for hard sci-fi, that's not me. Mine is more definitely Star Trek, Babylon 5. It's a softer sci-fi. I base it in real science where I can, but it's made up. And same with Blood of an Alpha and Luna. I try to infuse as much of the real wolf behavior as I can, but at the end of the day, wolves don't banish a pack member and declare to all wolves, don't touch with him. And the idea of an alpha in a wolf pack is wrong. There is no such thing as an alpha in a wolf pack. It's not yes, king. It's hi, dad. The parent, the pack is led by the parents, and the pack is their progeny. I didn't pronounce that right. Who cares? And I'm not quite sure what happens. Does an older does an older child take over when the alpha pair dies? I've never quite been able to be sure of that. But the idea of an alpha male, he just takes control, that's not accurate. But in Luna and Beloved Alpha, that's how it's portrayed because the story needs it to be. I don't like it, and some people won't like it because of that, but that's what the story needs. And unfortunately, I pray to the holy altar of the story rather than some of the other elements. It's not like I neglect world building, but it serves the story first.
I understand. No, that's completely understandable. Your story has to make sense and be what you want it to be, regardless of I mean, like I said, writing in fantasy, you get to make your own rules. So if if your wolf can fly, then your wolf can fly. If your wolf can talk to other humans, then they can talk to other humans. You get to make those rules as the author. That's your right and your privilege.
But you need to be consistent. If
True.
your wolf can only fly in the moonlight, he doesn't get to suddenly fly in the daytime. If you can only do magic with a wand, you can only do magic with a wand. So
True.
that's why I have so many pages of notes on the sci-fi, because I have all this technology rules that I have to keep track of.
Makes sense.
Like I said, I have a shield system that has rendered Sir Isaac Newton obsolete. Well, that also means that you can't have a shuttle fly through the shields. Just doesn't work.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that's definitely something that I have not delved into is the sci-fi aspect, because there are a lot of elements that you need to keep track of, rules that you need to set in place. And so I haven't delved into that yet. I'm still in the fantasy.
It's not for everyone. It's 30 pages of notes on one species, and then I have scores more on the ship. So it gets complex.
Well, hey, thank you so much for joining me today, Forrest. I greatly appreciate it, guys. All of Forrest's links will be in the description below, as well as the link to his Amazon page and then Luna as well. So thank you again so much for joining me today, guys. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you again soon.
Bye.
Bye.